Hello out there, and today we are looking at my collection of Kershaw knives. And this is the third collection video that I've done so far. The first two were for the Spydercos and the Benchmade's, and I will link to those videos in the description down below. But this one is going to be a little bit different because there are a few knives here that are modified or that are blemished, and so it should make everything a little bit interesting because some of the modifications that you'll see today are done pretty well, and then some are just a little bit more on the interesting side. Also, Kershaw's come in and out of my collection more often than any other brand, just because they are relatively cheap and they resell at a pretty good price point. So it'll be really neat for me to look back on this video and have an understanding of what I owned at this time. So just really excited to be doing this one today. We're going to be talking about each knife just a little bit individually. And if there is anything that you have questions about or would like to see more of, by all means, let me know in the comments down below. But we are going to head over here where the first one is waiting for us and get started. And the first one is actually a bit of a unique one just to begin with. So this is a sample model of a Kershaw Leek 1660. You can see on the blade it says sampled, not sharp. And this is basically just a display that a dealer could have in their shop to explain how the speed safe mechanism works. So you can see the safety wire that keeps the knife from being stolen is there. And everything about the knife is completely normal and the same as a regular functional Leek, except for the fact that there's no edge on the blade. So pretty neat thing to have, not necessarily rare. You can find these online to purchase at a relatively cheap price point, but just a cool part of the collection and a nice thing to display with the rest of my knives. And continuing with the other Leeks in the collection, this is one that you might have seen before. This is my modified acid etched and acid stone washed tiger stripe looking Kershaw Leek. This is one that I did myself, and in terms of my modifications and the customizations that I've done, this is one of the better looking jobs I think I've ever done. So really proud of this one. I finished it a couple months ago. Don't really know what the future is for this knife, if it's going to be part of my permanent collection or if I'm going to sell it, but for now it's here and I really like having it around. So there's that. But my favorite Leek is actually this one right here, the blue-black liner lock Leek. And the reason for that is I just really prefer the liner lock on the Leek to the frame lock. Really love this knife. This was actually my first ever Ken Onion design knife. One of my first Kershaw's ever. So I've had this one for years and years. Never let me down. Just a great overall knife. Love having it. Love the lightweight and just the comfort. Resharpenability has been really, really good on this one also. And then the last Leek that I currently own is a random Leek. All right, so this one has the random task blade and the Leek handle scale and frame. So the random Leek in S30V blade steel. This one also has a purple anodized set of hardware. And this one has an acid wash on it as well. And I also took a polishing Dremel to this and took the bead blast off just a little bit. Didn't really put a mirror finish on the blade, but I didn't like the bead blast, so I adjusted the finish just a little bit there. So very cool blade. Don't really love serrations in general, but finding this knife in a plain edge at a decent price is pretty difficult sometimes. So I went with the serrations here. All right, and then moving on from the Leeks to a knife that is discontinued. This is the Turbulent. And this is one that's going to be going up for sale relatively soon, but not because it isn't good. This is actually a really, really great knife. The ergonomics on it are wonderful. You know, no jimping on top, but really no need with how nicely it fits in the hand. Sandvik steel on this one. Really great traction on the G10. Good full-size blade. I'm not sure why this knife would have ever been discontinued because it's a great quality design, but unfortunately, sometimes to sell, to acquire new product, you have to sell some product, and that's why this one's going to be going away. But it's not for lack of quality. Great knife here. All right, and now moving on to a bit of a weird one. This is what I call the Franken Blur. This is my Kershaw Blur in S30V blade steel. I actually owned a brand new Blur at the point that I bought this. but I saw this knife at a really good discounted price, so I purchased it. It was pretty beat up. Sold my other S30V Blur and tried to modify this one a little bit to give it an intentionally worn look. So I polished up the aluminum frame here a little bit, the spots where it's exposed. Put these blue barrel spacers on it instead of the black ones, and gave it a bit of an acid etch, two-tone acid etch. Unfortunately, everything looks okay, but nothing looks great. So it's a good user, a good beater knife, and if you have a S30V beater knife, that's really not a bad thing. So I like this knife. There's no real resale ability, I don't think, with this one. So this is going to be mine for a long time, and no problem with that. I like it. All right, and next is the newest addition to my Kershaw collection, and this is the Pico. This is new for 2016, not one I ever intended on getting, but I came across it and just pulled the trigger and got it, and I'm so glad that I did. This is a really cool knife. Extremely simple, less George design, a little bit heavy because of how beefy the stainless steel frame lock is here, but great looking blade shape and good finish on it as well with the stonewash and the two-tone right here. So really like it. Probably going to end up reviewing it and going into more detail for you guys with this one. But yeah, really excited to carry this more and learn more about it. And another knife by Les George, which is another big hit for me, is the Weston. And I've reviewed this knife already in the past, and I absolutely adore this one. Just like the Pico, this Weston has a higher quality of fit and finish and action than any of the other 2016 Kershaws that I used. So this one snaps open really well, has a very, very good quality build. The blade shape, reminiscent of a Skyline, almost a bit of a spear point here, so I really like that. Great EDC. I carried this one a lot. Big success from Kershaw with this knife. All right, and we're about at the halfway mark. We've got one left before we do a quick review. And this is a knife that I just did a video on a couple days ago. This is the modified heat anodized Patriotic themed Cryo II, Rick Hinderer design. So this was done by Death is the Road to Awe 23. I will link to the video about this knife in the description down below. Just a very cool patriotic anno job. Love it. And love the knife just in general. It's a good beefy full-size folder. Good action on it. Yeah, Cryo 2, definitely the one that I prefer with a more full-size. Fits great in the hand. So, yep, I've always liked this one. So, at the halfway point, this is what we've got. This is what we've looked at already. And this is where we're headed. All right, so quick break is over, and we're going to jump right back into it with the Kershaw Dash. Now, the Dash is a Blade HQ exclusive at this point. Hopefully, it gets a wider release. It used to be released under the Snap-on name only, but now it's under the Kershaw name, and it is an awesome knife, guys. I've got a full review coming next week for this one, and I'm really excited to do that. And also, this one, bit of a spoiler alert, will be on my top 10 list of best acquisitions of 2016 because it's just that good. The lightness of the aluminum frame is wonderful. Track Tech inserts that are reminiscent of the Blur and the Camber. And then the blade shape is a favorite of mine because it makes me remember the old Kershaw piston. Very similar to that. So this knife could be considered like the child of a few different designs that are all winners. So I really, really like this one. Love the way it feels in the hand. I love the quality of the jimping, which isn't always great on Kershaw knives, and the jimping here is wonderful. So just really thrilled overall, and I'll be talking about this one a lot more in the near future. All right, so the next one is another modified one. This is the Strobe. I recently found out that this model has been discontinued, but this particular Strobe does not look much like the base model. So what I did was I removed the black overlays here, the scales, And so we have just the metal frame. Put an acid etch on the blade and gave it a line pattern and then a blotchy pattern here. And then on the frame, there's a copper colored heat anno that blends into an acid stonewash. And let me see if I can get this focus better. Blends into an acid stonewash here, and then that blends into a little bit more copper anno, but then eventually to the just the scale color. So very cool effect on the frame here. Really like how that turned out. And then on this side, just have a basic acid wash, a couple lines, and same thing on the blade itself. So pretty cool little look. To be honest with you, not the best, but it is a really good EDC regardless of how this one looks. Yeah, I really like the KVT ball bearings on this design. Very smooth, and if this is actually being discontinued, it is unfortunate because it's a pretty darn good knife overall. All right, the next one is the Franken Centofanti and Ken Onion little gentleman's carry knife. No pocket clip on this one, and this is a blemished model, XXXX, and the reason why I have this really is because of that. So this one, if you can take a look, is the signature series. So you have Ken Onion signature on this side. And then when you flip it, you should have Franken Centofanti signature right here in the middle, but you can see that it was misprinted a little bit. And also the Kershaw logo should be right here, but instead it's sort of misprinted as well. So very neat. You don't usually see the blemishes that extreme. So when I saw this one available, I picked it up immediately. And it doesn't really do anything in my collection. I don't carry it very often. Sometimes it's in my back pocket, but that's about it. Just sort of cool, a good conversation piece when you're talking about knives because of how unique that misstamp is. All right, so next we've got the Identity. Sorry, there's a lot of Kershaw knives that begin with I, and I wasn't sure of myself for a second, but this one is the Identity, and I reviewed this one recently as well, and I decided I was going to try to beat it up as much as possible, and the good news is I've been hitting this knife pretty hard with a lot of boxes and work around the house, some work outside. You can see the coating is getting scratched up. Holding up fairly well, but it is going to go. I can tell that. I still really like this knife though as a full-size beater. It's not as comfortable in the hand as I said it was in the review. Over the course of time and some heavy use, there are some hot spots, especially since I'm left-handed and the way that I carry the knife. There's a hot spot here at the clip, but if you're right-handed, you shouldn't notice that. So still really like this one as a full-size beater. All right, moving on to the Kershaw Ram. One of my absolute favorites. G&G Hawk design. It's got the Hawk lock. Extremely smooth. Just swings. Just wonderful, wonderful design. And I love functional creativity. I've said it before, but the fact that this is a unique knife that is also extremely functional makes it one of my favorites. So comfortable, great ergonomics, great multiple grip configurations on this one. Utilitarian cutting edge, great clip. No issues with this knife whatsoever. So glad it's in my collection. This one was a blemish also, though I'm not sure why it was a blemish, to be honest. So I was able to get it at a decent price, but it works perfectly well, and I don't know cosmetically what's wrong with it, so I'll take it. Last two. Going to be real brief with the next one because I've talked about this at length. This is the only ZT that I own, the 0770 carbon fiber. A gift from my wife, probably one of the best gifts I've ever received in my life. Elmex blade steel, extremely light because of the carbon fiber, and especially after handling all the other Kershaws that are right over there, this one just feels like a feather right now. So great knife overall. I carry this one as often as I can because it's just a good one. Just a really good user, wonderful blade shape and design, and makes me want to get more and more ZTs. And last but not least, we have the Thistle. And I saved this one for last for a reason, because it's probably the least expensive out of all these knives, and it's the one that probably everybody should own. And I say that because for the $17 and $18 that you're going to pay for this knife, you just get a whole lot of quality. It's a good build. It's a smart design, great lines. You can look at this knife and be reminded of one of the knives from the launch series. I'm not sure which one off the top of my head, but I mean, this looks a whole lot like one of those autos. I can't remember which one, but it's just a really good blade shape and good ergonomics. This big button right here disengages the liner lock, so this knife was marketed towards people who either aren't knife collectors or are maybe getting their first knife. So hey, it's safe. You're not going to have to put your fingers in the path of the blade as you open and close it. So just a really neat look overall. I carry this one a lot, and like I said, for 16, 17 bucks, I can't recommend it enough. A great blade. All right, and so that's everything, guys. That's the entire collection. So as always, any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know in the comments down below. I appreciate you watching. I've got a lot more on the way in the next couple weeks with that full Kershaw Dash review, and then my 10 best acquisitions for the year as 2016 winds down. So thanks for being on this journey with me. I appreciate you watching, and I will talk with you soon. Take care.